Awesome, thank you so much. So first session in the security track, we're excited to give this to you because it's something we have been observing the last couple of months. And we feel it's important to share it with the broader community and some of the pains we are seeing at this moment, because it's um, not all a really good message, if I can say it like that. There's some capabilities missing or difficult signs which we have seen. So today is really meant to show our experience, what we have for capabilities, but also what are the limitations and how we can work around them. So small introduction first of both of us. My name is Thijs Lecomte, and I work for a company called The Collective Consulting. Within the collective, we have a SOC, a Managed Detection and Response, and I'm the team lead of that team. So daily, I'm battling incidents and seeing new phishing attacks and mitigating phishing attacks. So this, I think, makes our experience really interesting because we really know day to day what is going on, and we see the attacks coming in. Active on Twitter, LinkedIn, and my blog, and I'm also one of the co-authors of the Microsoft 365 security book. And I'm going to hand it over to my colleague Chloe.
Hello, hello. I hope everybody can hear me. My name is Louis. I'm a security consultant, a colleague also of Thijs. So I also worked in the Managed Detection Response Service that Thijs is the lead of. I have a small blog, which is loosag.be. I make fun YouTube videos as well, and you can find me on LinkedIn. I do have to notice my internet just went down, so I'm currently on my mobile hotspot doing the demos. So bear with me. The demo gods are already giving me a hard time just before I start. But I hope everything is okay. If it's not, Thijs is ready to take over the presentation and to pick in where I drop it. But okay. So I'm also going to continue because Teams phishing in the wild. Yes, it is a thing. In 2023, we saw Storm 324 actually do the first, well, we also encountered it during our managed service, really attacking our users with Teams relating phishing attacks. And the cool thing was the attack was something we've never seen before. We never had to act upon to it. So we had to really investigate, like, what are our possibilities to do and to act upon it to make sure that it doesn't spread out. And Microsoft has also taken some improvements based on this new trend, let's say, and we're going to walk you through it. But maybe first, to give you some more context on how this threat actor operates, let's zoom in on what the threat actor actually did. Well, the threat actor used Team Fisher. It's a Python script that basically fully automates a phishing scenario via Teams. You provide, and Louis, it basically automates everything for you.
Oh, I think you're back. You dropped for a second. Okay, but I think you're back now.
Okay. So Teams Fisher, really short, automates everything. You supply a CSV, you supply a file, and it will basically automatically send everything to the people that you want to reach out to. And we've recreated this part to show you what are the indicators and how Teams also reacts to it. So if I stop sharing and I go to, I have a user who's called Alex the Clicker. And let's say Thijs, I've never talked to Thijs before. And first of all, you can see like, okay, wait, Teams is asking me like, do you know this person or not? I can preview his message, which will not show what I've done, that I read it or not. But let's say, yeah, I trust Thijs. Let's accept it. And this is really the thing what they've done. And if you look at the URL, they're pointing me to a SharePoint website. Okay, so I'm Alex the Clicker. I click on everything. So I click, and what it doesn't really matter what's going on, but this is basically the same modus operandi the attackers used. They fake you with an official looking website, well, SharePoint website, and at the bottom they presented you with a zip that you could download. but this is a file where you could load. I don't know before it loads. But the fact they shared when they tried to click on it, they saw like login.microsoft.com. Oh wait, we know that, we're trained that this is legitimate. Of course, oh, did I drop again?
Yeah, I think it's better. Could you try to turn off your video, see if that resolves it? And I think maybe I will take over the screen and the share screening in a second.
Yeah, let's see.
To avoid the issues.
Yeah. All right, we're back.
Yeah. So what we see here is really the attack. It's also trying to move around some of the limitations that we have within Microsoft Teams. Because if you're an external party, you cannot send attachments. So sending malware as an external guest to somebody, it's not possible. But what we can do is we can add links, and we see threat actors really mimicking like the attachment icon in Teams, and they update and they so they mimic the attachment icon, and it looks like you have received an attachment, but you actually receive a URL. And if you click on that URL, it goes to SharePoint. And what is really tricky about this phishing capability as well is that it also stores the files on SharePoint, but it shares those files with specific people. So it's not an URL which is open to everybody. It's a specific scoped URL. And that's where it gets tricky also to do incident response, because if you see that URL and you want to capture it and investigate it, you will not be able to access it. So you need to use somebody who received the email, log into that attacker's tenant, and then retrieve that file, and then only then you can investigate it. So it's an awesome tool. It's really well developed, but it makes it really difficult as a defender, as a blue teamer, to defend against that. We have seen similar attacks like this, almost exactly the same, to some of our customers. So it's not really that this is only beginning and just starting up. This is already ongoing, and we're seeing more and more people who are being targeted. Of course, there are some capabilities which we can use. I think the first one, of course, it's we are talking about external people. So external people mean that they are outside of your tenants. And by default, anybody can chat with anybody in Teams. So I can just open a chat and with any of the attendees right now, just send them a message, which will be really easy. But it also, of course, comes to a limitation, because it's so easy to spin up a new trial tenant in Office 365 and use that to send out the phishing and send to anybody. There's no protection, no domain age verification. It's really easy to spin up a tenant and send messages. So like we showed, what is a protection for external people, which was released around the middle of 2023, is we have a warning screen. So each time you receive a message from an external, meaning somebody outside of your channels, you will receive a warning screen saying, like will be shared, oh, hey, watch out, you haven't received any messages by this user, please be careful. And what you can do is you can click preview, or you can click block or accept. The added value of previewing a message is that the attacker cannot see if you read it or not. So we can kind of keep him in the dark, but also URLs are not clickable at that point. So having end users educated about previewing message is something really good to do, because it doesn't allow them to click on a phishing link and it makes them think twice. So if we click preview, you will see this screen and you will preview the message, and then you can click block or accept. Of course, this goes over the fact that we can chat with everybody, and that's kind of an issue because we have restrictions available. So in a Teams admin center within external access, we can configure who our users can talk to. There's two distinctions. There's Teams and then there's Skype. For me, Skype is a quick win. Who the hell still uses Skype? I would just block Skype as a whole because I don't really see it used and I don't see it added value. But of course, talking about, okay, how do you want to manage the external domains and Teams? That's tricky because The main advantage of Teams as a productivity suite is you can easily send message to everybody, and you can have such an easy contact with your customers, with your suppliers, and that is a big benefit from Teams. But we have a couple of options. So we have, of course, the first option, which is the default, which is allow all. Then we can have a block list, meaning everything is allowed, but block specific domains. This you can use if you see an active phisher, you can block that domain, but it will always be after the fact, because only if you have identified the phishing attack, you can block it as an external. The most ideal is one of these two. It's block everything, but have an allow list, or just block everything without an allow list. Now, of course, this is a big governance question, and there's not something you as a security guy can say, okay, we should block everything and create the allow list. This should be a bigger conversation within the company to see, okay, how do we want to manage this? Because there's a couple of questions you need to ask yourself. Should we block everything else? Me as a security guy, I will say, yes, block everything, because it cannot be trusted. You cannot know who is sending you, and it's really difficult to safeguard users from Teams phishing. On the other hand, you could say, okay, but in email, I don't whitelist domains. I can have everybody send me an email, and I don't need to put them a new domain on the allow list. So why should I treat Teams any different than email? Just keep the two the same. The third point is, it's a tricky one, is how much is external messaging really used? We as the IT guys will say, oh, but I talk with this supplier and this contractor and this consultant, and it's easy for me to chat. But this is you as a power user. This is you as somebody in IT. A regular end user, I don't expect them to use external messaging that much. And this is really important in the conversation that you have to have about, should we block it? You cannot think as you as the IT guy. You need to put yourself on place as somebody as an end user, which mostly will have contact within the company. So not a lot of external messaging. And the main downside is we don't have a capability at this time to monitor who is sending chats to who. Chats are being stored in a person's mailbox. So you have to read out the mailbox and check who receives which messages, and then create the allow list. But this is a really tricky thing. You cannot just create a simple KQL query or simple mail flow report to say, okay, these are the domains currently sending to us to build that initial whitelist. It's not a possibility as far as I have seen. So this is tricky if you want to move forward with this. If you do move forward with blocking everything, it's important to think about, okay, how do you want to handle allow requests? To me, this process should be simple and should not have a lot of difficulty for an end user to request like a supplier domain to be whitelisted. This is just a really, really simple example of an approval process where you can, using Power Automate or using a Power App or Logic Apps, you can monitor if a new request is made using SharePoint, wait for an approval, and then just add that using the Graph API. This is really simple, but it just goes to show you that you don't have to build a complex approval process for this. It needs to be an approval process which is simple enough so you don't hinder the end user to communicate and use a productivity suite of Teams. So this is something we really recommend. It's to block everything and have an allow list, but have an easy way for an end user to add a new allow list. And then you and IT can just check, okay, I know the domain is a supplier, or you can check with the end user, why do you want to add this? And then just quickly build that allow list. And this makes the balance between keeping it secure enough, but not building a really complex flow where you really hinder the productivity of an end user. During the rest of the presentation, certainly in the parts low people demo, you will also see some capabilities, and that will explain why we recommend to block federation. It's not just that it's insecure, it's just that the capabilities are different between federated users and internal users. And that's a really important thing to take note. If you want to respond to some of those attacks, you cannot respond to external attacks. But we will deep dive into that in a little bit. Moving on, of course, we also have guests. And here you can see I am looking up myself and I see I have two options. I have myself as a guest and I have myself as an external people. So those can be two different entities, two different chats. The main difference is with the first one, this is me in the tenant. So my user object is created as a guest account in the tenant. If you message a guest user, it's almost the same capabilities as messaging an internal user, because there's no distinction between the two. An external user, that's something different, that's another tenant. But with a guest user, you don't have that kind of limitations like we have with external users. For example, there's no warning screen. So if I'm invited as a guest, I can send messages to anybody in a tenant. Let's take the example as an MVP, I am within the Microsoft tenant. I can just send, in theory, a message to Satya Nadella, and it will be in his Teams without any restrictions or any warning screens. And that makes it really difficult to manage as well, because you need to be aware of this attack vector. If somebody is in your tenant as a guest, he can freely message everybody, independent of the federation settings you set up, like I showed you. So that's why it's also important to think about the broader guest management and the guest governance structure. Can anybody invite a guest, or is it only with an approval process or specific people? And how are these guests cleaned up and managed? Because this also takes into account, imagine if phishing comes in from a guest tenant, that is a possibility, and it makes it more dangerous than an external people, because there's so little monitoring and limitations set up on guest users. Another factor we have seen, it's not something we have seen abused, but it is a possibility, is every channel in Teams has an email address. So you can click on the channel and click get email address. And this will provide an email address which you can send to. By default, anybody can send to that email. So external suppliers or contractors, if they are a guest, they can get that email address and send messages. And this allows you to also send phishing messages directly into a Teams channel. So this is just an important point to take note. Note, for me, it's a quick win. I don't see mail messages into channels often used, and it's really easy to limit it. So what you can do in the Teams admin center, you can limit which domains can send emails. So I would just add your internal domains at this point, and that limits that people cannot send emails from the external domain directly into a channel. Because again, this is something also which is not monitored. It's not the same as an email where you have strict controls like anti-spam, anti-phishing, save links, save attachments. That's not 100% present in Teams messages and in Teams channels. So you need to be careful about what you have here and really limit the scope. We also have a save links integration. So this is within the V5 license, and save links will scan the URL and check if it's malicious. And this is an example of how it shows you. So if you click on a malicious URL, you will be greeted with this page, and you might or might not be able to move forward. There are a few caveats, however. The save links integration, it's only capable of scanning known malicious links. So what it will do is, on the time you click, it will see, okay, do I know this website to be malicious? If it is, I will block. If it's not known, I will allow you. But this means there's no sandboxing, no advanced analysis. There's no deep dive monitoring and scanning of those URLs. And this makes it really tricky and really dangerous as well, because most phishers they will just spin up a new domain, a new URL, and that will not be known with save links. And so that will be let through. So that's an important point to take note, is the capabilities for save links within Teams are not that good compared to email. So it's a complex beast, and you need to be aware of that, is that some of those security controls in Teams are not the same as email, so you need to treat them differently as well. You cannot treat them the same because there's so much difference. Well, there's an option now since a couple of months, is we have the option to report Teams messages. So what you need to do is within the Teams admin center, you need to enable that capability. And then in the security center, you also need to enable the capability. So there's two different places to do so. Once you have done that, you can click on a message, go to more actions and click report this message. So that's the same as you would report a phishing email. You can also report a message. Now, it is severely limited because it's only for internal messages. So when we saw that, we were like, what the hell? Phishing is really from external people, as from external users, and we can only report internal messages. So this doesn't make sense to all, to us. So you can only report messages coming from guests or really people, users, and your tenant. But it's not a solution to external phishing, which is where most of the attacks originate from. I know there's some technical limitations in the background on why it's not possible. It's because if you send a message that's stored in your mailbox, and so it's difficult to get that message cross-tenant. But to me, it's not an excuse. This is a capability which has way limited added value, because the only attack vector we will cover here is if an internal user is already compromised and then sending phishing messages through Teams. But it will not prevent an external from sending. That person will not be able to report a message. And then also a really severe limitation is the way how we can respond to it. For emails, you can preview emails, soft delete them, look into who received them, look into who clicked them. But those capabilities are limited within Teams. This is something my colleague Louis will demo to see how we can respond to reported messages. Louis, I'm not sure if your internet is improved and you can share again.
I've tried to figure out the ideal place to place my mobile phone to get the most reach out of my mobile connection. So I'll try to share again. Yell in the chat if it's undoable.
Okay, awesome.
But here I go. All right. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, and it's okay. The sound is also good for me.
All right, perfect. Okay, so I went ahead and already went to the page. The less pages I'll load, the less delay we have. So what can you do? Well, Thijs just talked like users can submit internal messages via Teams, via the buttons he showed us, and we can review these in the action and submission page when under submissions, and we go to user report. And here we can see that we already have a couple of submissions done by Alex the Clicker. And let's open one, for example. And if for this one, oh, please, yes. Here you can see, like, I sent the iCar download link to a user. Now, first of all, I expected this to be seen as malicious, as iCar is one of the indicators that is commonly seen as a test file. But in this case, it wasn't detected as malicious. But here you can also see that, for my point of view, that the Teams reporting functionality still has some tweaks or still needs some maturity. For example, there are in this page recommended steps for email submissions. I'm not going to click on this and then view this in the message explorer. But when you click on this, it will try to enter the message reported ID, and it will try to search for it in the Explorer, but the Explorer only shows email entities. It doesn't show Teams chat. So this is the functionality, this part where I say, well, yeah, but it isn't relatable to Teams and Teams messages. But of course, it does contain some interesting info rather than like who reported it, if it's a phishing simulation or not. And if somebody already converted this to an admin submission, meaning somebody reported this to Microsoft for analysis. So this is the part where you could report this to Microsoft and say, hey, like, no, wait, this is malware. So I've actually done that. And if you go to team messages, here you can see like the things that I have submitted to Microsoft to be reviewed and to say like, okay, wait, this is actually something that I consider as malware, consider as phishing, or consider as clean if there was a false detection. So it's not more than that, but maybe before we start getting to look at the zaps, maybe do a zap real time. Thijs, I don't know if you're ready to do the zap demo.
Yes, standing by.
So this is Thijs. And here you can see Thijs is sending me actually a malicious URL. This is URL, give it some time. I'm not going to actually click on it because we're actually waiting for Zap to figure out that this is a malicious URL. It takes some time, leaving this an option to be a gap. Let's say I'm chatting, I'm a really quick clicker, like Alex, I'm already hot on my Teams, and I'm interested of what's going on. If we give this, well, I guess, a minute, and then suddenly it should override and say, wait, this link is actually something malicious. See, do we have another one where we already done it? I have one ready already. Let's go to this one as well. Here you can see actually what happens when Zap comes in and actually says, well, no, this is not allowed because we've identified this to be a harmful message. You can see I'm already talking for a minute or two, and we still have this open window that does. I've just sent the same URL from myself to here. It should pick it up, but as you can see, it's quite dangerous. Okay, but how does this report into the portal? Well, let's go to the portal. So if we close this and we go to email and collaboration, we go to review. We go to the quarantine. And team messages. Here we can see the list of messages that he tried to zap. Again, we get the threads, high confidence fish, the team's message ID, which might come in handy during a KQL session. And we basically can release it, which I have done, but I'm not going to demonstrate. And then basically you can release the message again to the user so he can read it. Or you can pretty much delete it from quarantine so nobody else can release it afterwards. Let me see if it already kicked in. It hasn't yet. Don't know if it's based on my internet or not. Let me do this test. So it should come in test. I don't know, Tess, if you're blocked or if you have some feedback on your side during the sending of this URL or not.
No, it's
nope. Okay. Nope.
Not kicking in. So I think that this is like you said, there's a delay, and you're not sure when the delay is or how long the delay is, but there is certainly a delay when it kicks in.
So these are the mechanisms. So we have the users can report messages to me, well, only if they are internal, and Microsoft will monitor when malicious URLs are being sent to me, and they will try to zap them, get them away, and then you will get this user experience. This message has been blocked due to potential harmful content. Admins can release them after review or not. Okay, but wait, what if Microsoft now goes undetected? What happens then? Well, then we'll have to manually delete it. And Thijs, I'm going to let you present again, because it will be better for the connection, I guess, for the internet and throughput.
Sure, I'm looking into sharing the screen. Should be good to go.
Yes, all right, great. Chat deletion. Well, feel my pain. If we go to, let me show you the process of doing a deletion. If we go to the next slide, is, well, it's done via eDiscovery. And you need to have eDiscovery Premium, and it's a slow process. If you click one more time test, then you'll get then you'll get like, this is the scenario we're working in. This is threat, this is incident response. There might be, if we look at what the threat actors are capable, 100 users being attacked at the same time using the phishing tool I just showed. So what do you have to do? Well, you have to create an e-discovery case. You have to create a collection. And then you have to make sure that when eDiscovery has done his complete scan over your complete tenant, validated the input you gave, hope that you've entered the right parameters to get this scoped as much as possible, because it will look at that data to do the zap. And if it isn't hard enough yet, well, you also have to remove retention policies or possibly a hold that is placed by the eDiscovery. If we have that, if we know which data we need to zap, well, zap or delete, then we'll have to perform some Graph API calls. Yes, there is no built-in way yet to delete these messages on the click, just like we're used to do with the Threat Explorer when we just look for emails, click the checkboxes of the emails we want to block, want to delete. Bam, they're self-deleted. Well, here we have to do it via Graph API. So it's a three-step way if you follow the Microsoft documentation. If we go to the next slide, please. Oh, yeah, this is perfect. Actually, this is the view you get when you've done a collection. So basically, you're very capable of focusing on Teams messages, instant messages, it's called during your eDiscovery. So this is the view that you want to get. You want to get this as minimized as possible, or otherwise you'll be affecting resources, information, emails, whatever it is of data that might be affected in your deletion. Okay, let's continue. And here is actually the first API call. We first have to query all our eDiscovery cases and find out which eDiscovery case I just created that contains my data. So if we go next, and remember, your boss is yelling next to you, you're still figuring this out real time how this works. So if in the next slide, you can see, okay, I figured out, now I get to find my searches, because in my eDiscovery, I can have multiple object searches looking for specific data. If I have those searches, I can use those searches, which has an ID on its own, and I can do the purge data request. All right, we got to delete messages, hopefully, right? If we go to the next slide, this should be the message you get. This message has been deleted by an admin. All right, good. But this is for an internal user. This is when a user, for example, Thijs talks to me within the same company, and then we can zap those messages. But if we go to the docs, and that's on the next slide, I think there's a small delay when the slide hops on my side.
So I'm now sharing the Teams documentation, the Microsoft.
No, so in the next slide you're now sharing the Teams documentation. Okay, you're standing still on my side. Luckily, I know it by heart. But here you can see. Well, sorry. Before you start searching and deleting chats, be aware that external messages actually can be deleted, or they call it isn't working as intended. Okay. So they wanted to provide the feature, but it doesn't work out like they wanted to do it. And Zap and Teams chats, well, external messages. So the Zap actually happening from Thijs from another tenant to me, well, it isn't supported. So again, here, there is really no real way for us to act upon it when a lot of people are being attacked from an external tenant. Okay. If we go to the next slide. What can we do? What are the possibilities of, or what is the things that we can do to help us protect and help mitigate these attacks? And I'll try to share or demonstrate what I want to talk about, because we do have some information. We do have logs. So let's go to these logs. I'm going to start sharing my screen again. And I already prepped a couple of things. Thijs, if you could yell that you can see my screen.
Yes, it's perfect.
All right, perfect. So first of all, we have URL clicks. Yes, we have clicks. You can see, sorry, Thijs, I tried to scope it as much as I could to don't show that much private information, but we actually can see the clicks that Thijs has done. We can see that Thijs went to a Microsoft support link, but also clicked on protection against Bluekeep, and we can see that the clicks were allowed. These were clicks that were performed into Teams. Perfect. That gives us an ID. We can at least validate on everybody who clicked on it. That gives me the first scope. Now, as I've done in the demo, where I try to download a zip file, right? Okay, let's try hunting for that zip file. At least I've sandboxed it. I know which file they're downloading. Great. These are great indicators to work with. I can see a file rename. And if we look, the file rename is often common. Why? Because when a download starts, it first gets a temporary download name, and then it will give the eventual name of the file itself. Meaning, well, we see that this user real-time downloaded the document that was included in the phishing link. We can also see the file creation and the file modified. Okay, so the payload that was sent via Teams landed on the device. But did they execute it? Well, let's check it out. Let's check the process events. Oh, indeed. We have process created. So my document created OBS, Open Broadcast Software. I had a legitimate tool run there. But basically, you could see here, don't click on the device, click on the line. Basically, you can see, well, wait, OBS is actually running and executing the malicious attachment that is there. Boy, this is a high priority case because somebody really executed it. All right. So, but what do we have in Teams? Does Teams have more or not? Well, yeah, we have a lot of team logs. We can see when somebody has received something, when somebody has sent something. Well, received, a message read received. But wait, where are the logs that contain that somebody received a message? Well, those don't exist. There is no way for us to find in KQL what was actually there in the message. I cannot find any trace of this messaging me from an external tenant to me. So we're in the blind there. But what do we have? Well, we can find Teams messages that contain a certain URL. Not because he clicked, but maybe URLs that were sent to me and that I could trace. So that way I can also inventory the reach of people who have been exposed to the attack. Not necessarily clicked on it, because then we could use the URL click events, but really find the scope of it based on the URL. I know it's not ideal, but you can make it work looking at the other data. Let me see if I can pick up on the presentation, keep presenting or not. Because I have one more slide. And that is, well, okay, so what are our possibilities as a defense way? Well, we do have Microsoft Teams in an attack simulation training, which is Microsoft's product for phishing campaigns. But you can see from, it's quite for some time in private preview, and I haven't seen any real updates yet. I'm not involved there. But it's on its way where we can also train users to be vigilant against Teams messages which could have a phishing intent. So I'm looking forward to that. And I'm going to give the word back to Thijs to do the close off.
Okay, awesome. So we saw a lot, we demoed a lot, we jumped around a lot. I think we really want to show, okay, what are some of the phishing attacks possible within Microsoft Teams. That's when we have external, we have guests, we have mail messages and channels. There's a lot of capabilities and all of them are differently handled, but also the response to it. Like we showed, okay, great, we have a way to report a message. Great, but we don't have it for external. And if there's a message reported, it directs us to the Threat Explorer, but it doesn't provide us a way to see the messages in the Threat Explorer. So you really see that Microsoft is kind of plumbing away and slowly getting there, but the capabilities are not there as we would like there to be. So what do we want you to remember from this attack or from this session? Well, first, it's innovation. Threat actors don't stand still. They have more budget compared to the blue team, so they continuously evolve and look into different attack vectors. This one is an example, the Teams phishing. QR code phishing is a different one. Maybe in the future they will send QR codes into Teams, because now Microsoft is detecting QR codes in mails, but I don't think they're detecting QR codes in Teams messages. So it's really difficult to keep up, and we see that Microsoft is having also a difficult time to make sure that we have the defensive capabilities compared to attacks coming in. And at this point, we are not confident that we have the correct tools as a blue team, as a SOC, to protect the user base against phishing attacks. Of course, the next point is also important, is user awareness. You need to make your users aware of the limitations and the attacks possible. Do they know about Teams phishing? Do they know to be careful? Do they know the warning screens and how to handle them? This is something you should take into the user awareness training, like you do with email. As Louis mentioned, there is a prior preview out there for Teams messages in the attack simulator, but it has been available since March, and that's the latest update, March last year. So we're wondering, okay, when is this coming out? We have no idea, so we cannot wait for that. So you need to take action yourself and make sure that you take action to train the users about those different attacks. Now, the third point is the capabilities. It's really limited capabilities we have, like what we showed. It's the Threat Explorer, which is lacking Teams messages. It's reporting, which is not possible. Who has received the message, also not possible. So imagine if you have a phishing attack and somebody yells at you, somebody sent me a Teams phishing attack. Well, you cannot investigate it because they cannot report this. You need to take a screenshot and send it through. And then you could do some advanced hunting, but only based on the URL, not the content or the sender. And it's not easy to block the sender. You need to block the entire domain. So it's really limited. So this kind of brings us to the conclusion that we have for this point is our recommendation as the fourth and final point is really to block federation. It's block external messaging. It's unfortunate we have to do this because we will impact the productivity suite from Teams. But as a defender, we cannot promise that we will protect the end users because of those limited capabilities and because we're continuously lacking. So this is also a recommendation we do to our customers. Hey, Teams is great, but we should block external access, make sure that we stop phishing attacks, and have a good process to allow new domains. So this is the end of our session. I hope you enjoyed some of the insights we showed you and some of the capabilities and limitations we have seen. Please rate the session if you can, so we can also get feedback on how the session was received.